What are some of the stereotypes around action sports? And how do you think some of these stereotypes might be problematic or limiting in terms of what we can do with these sports and how these sports are being funded and supported?
Adults, I guess, see skaters as being a little bit antisocial, I suppose, because there's this perception that kids that hang around skate parks are doing drugs or they're drinking beer or they're doing all this antisocial behaviour, which is absolute rubbish, And it's kind of ironic, when we look at the state of organised sport at the moment at the professional level as well, when we look at, institutionalised drug use in sport, violence, all the other sorts of antisocial behaviours that occur in organised sport, and yet we continue to promote and invest in organised sport and talk about skateboarding as being antisocial. It's kind of, there's a disconnect there somewhere, I just think, gee, something's missing somewhere.
The two main trends are one, that it's dangerous, daredevil, thrill-seeking behaviour, and only reckless idiots would do it. The other is, it's amazing, fantastic, but there's no way that I could do it.
No one gets into bodyboarding because it's cool, but it's still an alternative sport, and I suppose in terms of stereotypes, it's seen as the thing you do before you get into stand-up surfing. It's not actually looked at as a serious, there's no serious side to it.
Yeah, probably the stereotype with a lot of the action sports is that it's a bit rebel, it's off-piste, it's a bit different, and as a result sometimes they struggle for credibility when they're dealing with formal organisations.
I mean, they're just an expression of their own individual interests and needs, and I think that's fantastic.
It's probably less structured. It's more immediate, it's individualised, but having said that, it's self-regulating, so without too many rules and regulations and procedures, without too many silver hairs telling them what to do, they get on and do it, and that probably works well with the New Zealand ethos, getting out and just doing it, getting on with it.
Because if you actually study skateboarding and you study the culture of skateboarding, you'll see how cooperative it is, how much they support each other. It's a fantastic culture.
But they're clearly responding to something that's not being delivered through the traditional channel or the traditional model, or that's just not their gig.
Most of these activities, because they're individualised, there's a core definition, but you're able to participate in the way you want to, and so there's a larger creative outlet. I love, sport in general. I don't just like parkour, but I can do parkour the way I want to do parkour, but I can't play rugby between the touch lines. I have to go between the try lines, so you can't do it your way and still fit into the mould of what the definition is.
It's quite interesting. There's the old brand capital brand research which shows sort of the more traditional team sports as having we're actually not too dissimilar in terms of being seen as traditional for New Zealand, reliable, trustworthy versus the fun, cool, modern, and I kind of see that as kind of the ultimate challenge.
I think too, one of the best things for me with the kind of action sport overarching umbrella is that mostly it's in the environment, so as far as like creating the health, the fitness, you're learning about what's going on up there with the weather, you're learning locations, it's really quite complex, and you learn a lot.
Social dynamics, how to work around
social
people.
dynamics, and you just all around, you are creating like a really good kind of person,
I've just been stunned by the level of demand actually for skateboarding, from schools and from people, and it's a lot of mothers are driving this. They want their sons or their daughters to be involved in skateboarding. One of the challenges is that a lot of these young kids want to go to a skate park, but they find it too intimidating because they don't have a skill set to be able to do it. They don't have the fundamentals because the big kids are racing around. So what we do is basically we give them the opportunity to learn how to skate for a start in a semi-structured sort of environment. What we then do is really just change the environment to allow them to self-manage their own challenge, if you like. So it's a little bit different from a coach sort of standing over them, telling them what to do and when to do it.
One of the complex things with surfing and snowboarding to some extent is accessibility, but also equipment, confidence, and you sort of find that a lot of surfing, the athletes or the participants come from a family where they've been taken there. So I mean, what I'm doing is, you know, creating an environment where they have access to the equipment, to the knowledge and safety, and just sort of providing a place where it's non-judgmental, and it's also a place where the parents can come and gain some confidence. I mean, the whole of New Zealand is surrounded by the ocean, but you know, there's a lot of people in there that don't really have the confidence to take their kids, you know, because of their own, say, the parents, and you know, they want to have that support around them.
I take a group of South Auckland students out to Piha and straight away we're like, oh, we're going to drown, you know, and that's one of the stereotypes, is that Pacific Island Māori do not get in the water, yet our roots are very water, you know, water based. So it's, well, why is this? How has this happened? And for me, it's about exposure and I guess accessibility. You know, a lot of people from South Auckland, it's so far to drive all the way to Piha. So
You paddle out in any break in New Zealand, and you know, you have to have some quite strong guts about you, or have had a lot of brothers to sort of, you know, get in there and try and hustle for waves. So, you know, what I'm trying to do, and I'm sure Mahi as well, is just support the young women of our country, and the older women too, because there's no reason why you can't be like 45, 50 and give it a go. I mean, the only one laughing is yourself at yourself. So.
It's always been visually inspired because you want to go and do stuff. So for us, from a production side of view, it's always about being aspirational and encouraging participation in it. And now we've just got bigger outlets to do it, which has global scale, and that always has more upsides.
So that means that people who slip through the net, you know, lots of people who participate in parkour who love sport, and lots of people who absolutely despise it and were left out of all of the, you know, things that all their friends were part of, and now after, you know, practicing for so long, they're the ones that actually are still fit and strong and able. The people who are out practicing, less so participating in classes, but just they love parkour and they want to do it, they don't want to pay for a class, they just are involved in the culture and want to do it. That's the young adult male. The ones that want to come and learn and do a structured class, they're the younger children. But more and more we're getting a lot more women and girls through, which is fantastic. And I mean, it's one of those things where we're working with the demographic we've got, because we can't push it any further because nobody sees any value in it yet, so we can't go any further than that at this stage.
What are the struggles for developing these sports in New Zealand? Where is the support currently coming from? Is it coming from the government? Is it coming from the action sport industry more broadly, outside New Zealand? What are some of the strategies that you each have been developing to try to overcome some of the barriers or difficulties in supporting these sports? And then what do you feel is needed to further support action sports developments in New Zealand communities and for New Zealand children and youth?
Besides everything.
Yeah.
Where to start?
Yeah, well, for me, I just kind of took the skills that I learnt through my snow career and took them into the ocean environment, and created this kind of day for girls to learn to surf. And I just, can't believe how sort of well accepted it was, and how, you know, realised the demand for it. And pretty much the support comes from volunteers, local businesses, local board riders club. Pretty much. I mean, as far as like wanting to get more support, I definitely, you know, we want that to happen. We're taking it out of the gorge in Gisborne to come around New Zealand like this summer. But most of it's just driven from passion and entrepreneurial kind of take, and we need more support.
So one way of addressing that is to actually celebrate that difference and actually use them as role models. And there are plenty of really powerful messages that these action sports can provide to formal organised sport. And some of the people that are involved in those sports can represent their sports extremely well. It's getting those people in front of the organisations that they need to talk to actually provide opportunities and create an environment that those sports can flourish in.
The tongue-in-cheek answer for me is I'm driving and supporting parkour in New Zealand. So I'm a full-time CEO of NZ Parkour, means I'm a full-time volunteer with basically no support, so it's not particularly flash. But we've got a base of volunteers from as far north as Kerikeri down to Invercargill, but we lack feet on the ground. The issues are the fact that because things like American Ninja Warrior and big blown up media things are making people excited, but the actual people who are experienced and able to coach and share that is much more limited.
So sort of an investment and support for those up and coming athletes so they can, compete successfully internationally. And if you look at what the Winter Games, for example, has done in terms of freestyle skiing and snowboarding and things. So having sort of major events that are part of the world sort of landscape is a way of is helping those sports establish themselves.
Action sports now, because it's leading so far at the front on the same merge of technology and content being able to be shared so quickly if it's good. Basically, it's enabled action sports to get a lot more, just like the Beatles had radio and TV to get them blow up through music on a global scale. Action sports has been able to use media and technology to the same extent. Our vibe and passion within action sports has actually enabled the corporates realise that we have a different take on things, and that's actually really valuable for big corporations and businesses. So the reality is now we kind of did our own thing, and now the other guys are actually copying us with how we do it and why we do it. And that's the actual truth of it, which is why mainstream's now taking a lot from action sports as well.
It's establishing that credibility and being recognised. A lot of the support that they're getting currently is really reliant on a lot of local authorities. A lot of money's gone into the development of tracks and trails around New Zealand. And that's opened up spaces and places, which has allowed the opening up of spaces to give them access, creating an environment and a feeling that having given you the access, you can go and do what you need to do, and also providing an avenue where you can fast track resource consents to actually let them get on and do the activities they want to do. Finding ways to navigate through the bureaucracy.
And that's the biggest problem now, is because all the governments and councils and big brands want to touch it, but they don't actually have the educational piece, which is why they need to talk to the right people that know what's up, because they've gone through it. And time again, I'll see local councils and stuff make initiatives, and they all actually have the right thing at heart. The reality is, it basically all turns to shit because they don't talk to the right people.
And what we try and do is we try and employ local skaters, so I try and contract skaters at these particular parks to come and work for me to deliver these events. So I'm looking for them to sort of, one, it's about trying to give some employment for these guys, and it is mostly guys. And also about getting them to take a sort of sense of ownership for their park as well, and getting them to sort of appreciate the value of giving back to the community.
You can't just centralise everything in Auckland, because there's a lot of other places in New Zealand. There's a lot of places that need a lot more help and support.
Straight up, it's money. There needs to be a financial structure to support the people that want to go out and educate others on that sport, but whether it's parkour, skateboarding.
So what we do is we work with the youth and help them engage with the council through the planners to say, in designing city landscapes, take account of the skaters and make them skateboard friendly. Instead of saying we will ban skateboarders and others, make them part of your community, actually embrace it. It's taking the opportunity to look at how the sports can modify their traditional forms of the game, in many cases to meet the time pressures that people are under now, making it shorter, sharper, in and out, and without too many rules and regulations. So, different forms of the game that will still give people that physical activity and that adrenaline rush.
Look, I think there's a lot to be learnt, and if I think about it's the flexibility around the participation opportunities, I think, with a lot of these sports, the action sports. So I keep thinking, what can I learn from thinking about action sports and how obviously attracting a growing participation base compared to a sport like netball, which you could say is the Goliath, if you like, and how we need to change as a sport.
Sort of a general societal trend towards you picking and choosing what you want when you want, and so we're talking about the reduced amount of people participating in organised activities, going towards more stuff that they can do when they want in their own time rather than going to the club and participating that way. And so it's the same with TV, you watch it online when you want to watch it rather than, you know, recording it, watch it when you get home rather than having to be there at a specific time. And so parkour is an activity that is not, no facilities are required, it's not weather dependent, it's not age or level dependent. You can go out and do it wherever you want, whenever you want, to whatever level. And so it provides an outlet that fits that trend really well.
So, you know, this is really opening our eyes in terms of us kind of saying, well, here's our sport, take it, to actually thinking about this is our market, and then within that, where have we got really tightly defined target markets, markets of opportunity where we are not meeting, where our participation rates are lower than we would like them to be.
Yeah, what was fringe is now mainstream, so it's the action sports where the growth's occurring. So we have to follow that trend and embrace it. The implications for councils and traditional organised sporting organisations is they've got to modify their approach and go with it and anticipate it, and provide you know, not so much the infrastructure. The worst thing that could happen is if we try and take it over and run it for them. They're better to actually run the sport themselves, but provide the mechanisms and the support structures that helps them to do that. As a country, we like to push the envelope. Our kids like to try things out. So we're probably going to move away increasingly from that formal structured environment to a more unstructured form of activity and physical involvement.
I think the reality is that there's a lot to be learned from the ethos of some of those sports. So from a New Zealand Rugby League perspective, you know, we've got to be a lot more nimble about how we respond to what's going on in the marketplace. And I think we've also got to be prepared to be really innovative and do different things. We've been running some play groups in our rugby league clubs. They have nothing to do with playing rugby league, but they have everything to do about our playing community and our sense of who we are and what we're about as an organisation, because we have a very clear view on that. And that means that as an inhibitor, it just falls away in terms of, you know, well, we can't do that because what's that got to do about sport? But it's got everything to do about that playing community, the things that matter to them and the bits that fly around it. And I think those are the things that, when you look at some of those action sports, the cultural elements, the things that are important to those participants and their community, whatever that might look like, those are the things that I think present some opportunities for the more traditional, structured, you know, sports to take on board some learnings and insights.
You know, like a lot of the traditional sports in New Zealand, we've got the teenage drop-off thing happening, particularly going into that tertiary space, which I think is a real opportunity for us. So the characteristics that the action sports have in terms of accessibility, you know, for that, you know, the me generation, I think is really, really relevant for us.
I don't think traditional sports have been very good at actually engaging with their communities and actually going to their youth and in fact any of their age groups and saying, what do you need? You know, what's going to actually spin your wheels and keep you involved? And what can we do to make it more attractive for you? And I think we've all got a role to play as leaders in sport to actually just go out and ask them, engage them in the process.
I think we can be doing a heck of a lot more in terms of sport in New Zealand. So this is actually not about, to me, it's not about competing with other sports, it's actually about more participation opportunities. And we've got kind of these very unique landscapes and access to lots of water and great, you know, so I just think as a nation we should absolutely be embracing action sports and looking at ways in which we can really look for participation opportunities. And, you know, if it gives us a good sort of shove along, you know, fantastic.